Hello, and welcome to The Difference Makers, sponsored by Difference Makers Media. I'm Lynn Sanders, your host, and I am so glad you are here today. We have breaking news. This is an interview around a live event that's taking place this Sunday, February 25th, from 2 to 4 p.m. at the Holiday North Shore in Skokie, Illinois. The topic is Preserving Our Treasured Democracy, brought to you by the group Unify Our Voices. Now, why is this important to you if you live outside of Illinois? Because this topic can be replicated in cities across the country. In fact, at the end of this broadcast, you will get an email, and I'd like to tell it to you right now, where you can send a message to the founders of this group and learn how you can replicate this event anywhere. That email is unifyourvoices@gmail.com. The event can be also registered for by going to the site Eventbrite, eventbrite.com, and look for Unify Our Voices. Tickets are $20 for adults, $10 for students, or if you have financial need, you can email unifyourvoices@gmail.com and ask to have a complimentary ticket. So now, let me share with you the credentials of our guests on this program. First, you'll be hearing from Scott Silberstein. Scott is a 6-time Emmy Award-winning writer-producer and co-founder of HMS Media in Chicago with Matt Hoffman. Scott has many accomplishments, too numerous for me to mention right now, but I want you to know he's also a strong community activist and part of the group Unify Our Voices. Next, you'll be hearing from Ann Sorensen. Ann is the co-founder of the Yellow Tractor, an organization that's dedicated to promoting local educational support to grow one's own vegetables, both individually and with community, not-for-profits partnering with corporations. Ann is also a very active volunteer in the community, in public schools, in nonprofits, and for the environment, and she is on the committee also at Unify Our Voices. Last but not least, joining us a few minutes into the interview, you'll be meeting Lynn Bondy. Lynn is the co-founder of Unify Our Voices with Ellyn Hoffman. She's also a social worker, a therapist, a parent educator and coach, and co-founder of Parenting Perspectives, where since 2002, she has helped over 15,000 parents through workshops, classes, parent consultation, and therapy. So you see, we have a great lineup of guests, and I'm really excited to have you here to learn from them. So without further ado, let me welcome Scott Silberstein and Ann Sorensen. Welcome to both of you.
Thanks, Lynn. Hi.
Thanks, Lynn.
Hi. So Scott, I'm going to turn first to you. Can you tell us first, what is Unify Our Voices, and why is it important for people to know about it?
Unify Our Voices is a collection basically of regular folks like Ann, you, me, people who I think are, like many of us, trying to find ways to respond to the world around us. There's a lot of things happening. Information comes at us fast and furious. And I think if you hear enough, as many of us have, that we're living in a post-truth, post-fact society, these sound like deeply cynical, very negative terms that make you just want to turn off all media, turn off the phone, dig a hole and dive in and stay there. And that's not really an option. And I don't think there is truly anything as a post-truth or post-fact society. And I think Lynn and Ellyn responded to that by bringing a bunch of people who agree with that idea, people who believe in activism, who believe in advocacy, who believe that there actually is work to be done, relatively easy work to be done, when it comes to getting organized around actual truths. Truth is found in community. Truth is found in surrendering to something bigger than yourself. Truth is when you surrender up the idea of I and me and mine and make it about we and us and ours. It sounds very simple. It almost sounds very new agey, but we all strive for community. It's why we like having friends. It's like why we like having family. And in my case, it's why I like having being part of 2 different ensemble organizations that create truth for a living. And you can do that in the fiction and the nonfiction world, whether you're Shakespeare or you're Bob Woodward. there are different kinds of truths to be told. So Unify Our Voices is really to get a lot of people with singular voices, but who are interested in something positive and something good. We're interested in the communal good and not the individual I'm right. And that's really the vibe of what Unify Our Voices is, and the kind of people that Ann and I think of ourselves as being. And that's why certainly I, as someone who works in the arts as well as someone who works in advocacy, found it extremely appealing. It's exciting to sit around a table of people and not be right, and to not know things out loud, to want to go for a common good, to say, I don't know, let's get around other people who don't know, who can help us go explore.
Great.
What
That's
truth
really
is.
important. Now let's turn to Ann, because there's a lot to say about this event, and it's not just you and me talking. You have put together some very important experts. So I'm going to ask Ann to address who are the experts speaking at this event, Unify Our Voices, this Sunday, and what is their background?
Oh, absolutely. The first, the overview for folks who are listening right now is to understand that our group gathered together. We're from all over the Chicago suburbs, and we come from very different backgrounds. But as Scott was saying, we all have a sense of hope and an unwillingness to give in to the cynicism. So what we did was sit down together and say, who can we find, and what organizations are A, not-for-profit? It's a little harder to impugn a not-for-profit group. And B, who counts as neither Republican nor Democrat, but who rides the middle line and who's doing their best, again, to find that truth. So our speakers include Noah Bookbinder, who is the executive director of CREW. They are in particular looking at the emoluments clause, which is something that at this point many of us have heard about, but looking at ethics and governance, which many people are concerned about right now. We also have David Salvo, who's a resident fellow at the German Marshall Fund, Alliance for Securing Democracy. It's a long, mouthy sentence, but what they are looking at is tracking the Russian platforms that have been interfering with our elections and that we're concerned about as more elections are coming around shortly. And we also have Susie Schultz, the president of Public Narrative, another nonprofit, which is working to shore up our country's democratic underpinnings, working with and training nonprofits and the media to tell better stories. So we also have a moderator who is just fabulous, and Neil Steinberg. He's with the Chicago Sun-Times. He is, I don't know, Scott, you want to take over with Neil?
Well, I want to say, if we could we have Lauren, who just was able to pop in. Lauren, I'm hoping we have your sound here.
I'm hoping so too. Can you hear me?
Great. Okay, so
Excellent.
Lauren, let's give Lauren a chance to speak. Lauren Bondy is the co-founder of Unify Our Voices with Ellyn Hoffman, and she's also the co-founder of her own business, Parenting Perspectives, where she's helped over 15,000 parents through workshops, classes, parent consultation, and therapy. So we're going to just focus for right now on the event. And Lauren, you were mentioning Ann a moment ago about another speaker. Do you want to pick up where Ann just left off? She was talking about the speakers, and I'd like to have you speak a little bit more about why you put this event together and the experts involved.
Yeah, so Ellyn and I put this event together because we just felt that we really wanted to do something more than call our members of Congress every single day and doing the resist bots and doing the traditional ways of trying to make our voices heard. And we just wanted to do something more. In fact, there's kind of a funny side story to this. My husband and I were out with some friends for dinner, and we were talking about some of the frustrations that we were all experiencing with what's going on in our country. And I made a comment about that there's really a lot of people coming together and movements are starting, and there is a resistance going on, and how empowering that was. And these friends of ours are very intelligent, well-educated people. And one of them said to me, "What's the resistance? What's that?" And I just thought, gosh, there are so many people that don't know that there's a lot of frustrated people that are actually making their voices heard and wanting to do something. And I thought, if people like this aren't involved and don't even know that there's a movement starting, we've got to do something about that. So I called Ellyn and I said, "Ellyn, you're not going to believe what happened last night. We've got to do something." And we just started to go back and forth about what we could do, including, and Ellyn's feeling at the time was, well, we're doing so much. We've got to support the organizations that are really on the front lines doing things. And so we put this incredible committee together, just this incredible group of go-getters, and we really, that's how we began the process of trying to really sort through and figure out, who do we support? How do we pick? There's so many assaults going on right now to our democracy and to our country and to marginalized voices. And where do we even begin? And so we started as a committee kind of plowing through and sorting through the event that ultimately came to be what it is.
Terrific. Thank you. Thank you all. So we have 4 speakers. We have a limited amount of time. And so I want to ask each of you, what do you think is the most important thing people need to know about coming to the event if they're local, or even if they're not local, why should they care? So start with Scott, since you were our first speaker for right now. What are some of the important things people need to know, and why should they care?
I'm a big U2 fan, and one of the things that I loved about Bono greeting the crowd on the Joshua Tree tour last year is he said, no matter who you voted for, you're welcome here. That America isn't just a country, it's an idea to which all are welcome to partake. And I think that's the most important thing that people should know about this, and ideally about any gathering anywhere. This is not something people should want to worry about, whether they're going to see the Cubs or go to see Star Wars or Black Panther. You like to know that everyone's welcome there. In a situation like this, where we're talking about things like democracy and truth, and sadly, even those words have started to garner a certain political charge to them. The most important thing is we are about genuine truth and genuine democracy, and that everyone is welcome to do that which democracies both allow and demand, which is everybody speaks and is heard in their turn. Our panel, I think, will demonstrate that. Neil Steinberg from the Chicago Sun-Times is going to be setting up what I think will be a wonderfully successful conversation, where you're going to hear equally from people who will be sharing ideas, and I suspect not all agreeing on every perspective, as I think would be most exciting. This is not a diatribe. This is not a lecture. This is not a rally, and we're not trying to bring any one person down, nor are we trying to bring an institution down. The truth is nonpartisan. Community at its essence is nonpartisan, and even at its root word, politics, is nonpartisan. It's about people working together in society and figuring out how to balance various needs and wants, to figure out the balance between power and those people with power, people who want it, people without it. So I think those are the really important things. We're getting down to the root of what this is. These words, these ideas, this conversation has been co-opted by people with specific agendas with a lot of money. Mm-hmm. And they've got a lot of power and a lot of money. You know what they don't have? Numbers of people. There's more of us than there are of them. And I think Lauren and Ellyn have done a really beautiful job making this about truth in community, and that this is the kind of thing where you don't come and hopefully then leave more riled up and depressed. I think there will be challenging things discussed, but I expect that when you come in and plunk down your $20, or hopefully have already plunked down your $20 by responding to the Eventbrite invitation online, which you can search by either the event itself, Preserving Our Treasured Democracy, or the name of the organization, Unify Our Voices, that you will get more than your money's worth, not only in terms of information, but people you've met, and I think a feeling of being an empowered citizen in this country, which I think at our root, that which scares us and frightens us and depresses us most is the feeling that that's gone, and we don't believe it is.
Right. Oh, that's so well said, Scott. Thank you. And I love the fact that this is not a partisan event. Everyone is welcome. Republican, Democrat. We have They're nonprofit organizations speaking so that they are speaking from their hearts. And also you mentioned how they can, which we'll end with, how you can get tickets to the event or even donate even to these nonprofits. So I made a link shortener, just so you all know. We'll have this posted at the end of the program too. If you use the lowercase letters BIT as in bit.ly/UOV, all capitals, UOV for Unify Our Voices -tickets with a capital T, you will go right to the registration page. So Anne, I'm going to turn to you now. Thank you so much for telling us about some of the speakers, and you and Lauren also can speak to what topics are going to be covered, or why people should care about this event. So Anne, let's hear your viewpoint now and more about the topics and why they should care.
Thanks. I think, part of what drove me to become involved with this group, and it's been so fun and refreshing to get to know another group of folks, is that while I'm very locally active and try and pay attention to what's happening, of course, nationally and internationally, I take some pride in paying attention to that. Beyond the bread and circuses, it's been hard to know what the parallel is beside what I'm doing here to promote civic responsibility and responding to one another in a more civil manner, having conversations and working together to work through our issues rather than pounding each other. So I think the thing that really fuels this personally is that I have found myself in conversations over the last year, but this has been building for more than a year. This has been building for more than a few years. So it isn't about whoever is in the current presidency. But I find myself in conversations with people lately where folks are opening up in ways that I never would have expected, and coming from places that I have assumed were very different from my own. And the shared concern is for our democracy and our civil society. And it's coming from people, again, all over the political spectrum. And that unites us, and it should unite us. So it brings us back to our event on Sunday, because I'm hoping that we walk away from Sunday with a sense of hope, a sense that we are not singular people with these concerns, with very few places to go, that this gives us a deeper perspective, and it gives us a sense of strength, and it gives us more knowledge and more wisdom from which to work. And broadening those connections matters, and believing in one another matters, and knowing that we're all sort of keeping the faith on this. Yeah.
That's good. Lauren, I'd like to turn to you as our closing too, but I want to cover a little bit more on what we're going to be talking about on Sunday.
Sure.
Because we just talked about the speakers, and you came into the program. And then before we conclude, we were talking before the cameras started rolling about the idea of using this as a template for other cities to use. So I'd like you to talk a little bit about that as well. So
Sure.
First, can you share some of the topics?
Yeah, so David Salvo, who is part of the Alliance for Securing Democracy, is going to be talking about the Russian disinformation campaign. They have a couple of dashboards now. One is called the Hamilton 68 dashboard, which has been tracking 600 Twitter accounts that are promoting pro-Russian themes and amplifying themes. They are spreading discourse. We already have so many cracks in our country and so many divisions in so many ways. And what Russia is doing through Twitter and social media is they're exploiting the cracks that we already have in our society.
I see.
And so it's just creating more discord. And so they're going to be talking about how they do that and what they're finding. They've been doing this for a while. It's very timely now, especially what just happened recently in the news with the indictments, and that the proof has finally come out that Russia did interfere, even though the intelligence has been saying that. The Alliance for Securing Democracy has been tracking this for a long time. So they were going to have some really fascinating things to say, fascinating things that all of us as citizens can be looking out for. And the Alliance Crew is going to be talking about, as Anne said before, just really some of their ethics watchdogs right now. So they're going to be talking about some of the ethics violations and what they're doing about that. And then Susie Schultz is a journalist, and she has her own organization that really helps journalists get their voices out, get the stories out. All of our social justice stories in this country, all kinds of stories, the stories that need to be told, the marginalized voices, their stories need to be heard because, as Scott said before, in a democracy, all voices matter. Everybody needs to be heard. And so Susie helps journalists help tell the stories of people whose stories need to be told. So she's going to be talking about that and why the First Amendment rights and why the media is so important and really a pillar of our democracy. And so some of the attacks that have been going on in our country, she's going to really highlight why that's so dangerous and what we can do to safeguard some of that as well. So it's really going to be a fascinating discussion from a lot of different angles. And I'm really looking forward to it. Neil Steinberg is a great moderator, and I think he's going to be able to really dive deep in the amount of time that we have.
Excellent. Let me just interject. What does CREW stand for those who don't know the initials?
Yeah, so thank you. Yeah, it stands for Citizens for Responsibility and Ethics in Washington. So, and they've got amazing people on their staff. I mean, they have people, Norm Eisen, who was President Obama's ethics advisor, and Richard Painter, who was George Bush's ethics advisor, are both on the staff at CREW. So they really are a nonpartisan organization that is concerned about ethics. So there's some big hitters in that organization as well. And Noah Bookbinder will represent them in a wonderful way.
Who is flying in from Washington? Ellyn told me you have a guest as well from Washington.
Yeah, so Noah Bookbinder and David Salvo are both going to be coming in, which is very exciting.
That's great. Well, how can anyone listening to this from another state be able to replicate what you're doing? How can this be a template? Have you thought about that?
We haven't thoroughly thought about that yet, to be honest, but what we would want to do is encourage anybody who is interested in putting on an event like this to contact Ellyn or I, and we are happy to walk them through the steps and support them every step of the way so that they can get their own events going, because that would really be something, right, to have this be, going on in a lot of different places.
I think if I can jump in real quick, I think one of the things that's really important is that Ellyn and Lauren did this without a playbook. And while I'm sure they would be the first to say, as all of us who have started organizations or started events, that you do something and you learn from it and the things that you would improve on next time, you look at who they brought together, two people who were just frustrated and decided to have a conversation about it and take an action plan. And a handful of weeks later, a prominent Chicago journalist is talking to three nationally recognized advocates from major not-for-profits. And it all was because the two of them said, we need to do something. We're going to gather our friends to do it and then do it. I would absolutely encourage anyone to reach out to Ellyn and Lauren. They'll learn some great stuff about how to put this together. But I think the most exciting thing about this is we just got together and sat around Lauren's dining room table and said, let's put on a show and see who comes. It was not exactly Mickey Rooney, Judy Garland time, but in many ways it was, which is one of the fantastic things about this country. I mean, I don't want to, in a sense, I was about to almost put a disclaimer. I don't want to over romanticize but I kind of do want to hyper romanticize this. We live in a country where, despite the fact that a lot of us have some major issues with what's going on in the world and who's leading it, we got to sit in clear view in a living room where everybody could see us. We didn't have to hide anything. And we said, let's do something that's going to address things that we think are important, that frankly, any particular government, whoever's in charge at that time, Republicans, Democrats, whomever, might have some problems with. the cool thing is, in this country, that's what you're supposed to do. There's a great line from the West Wing that says, it's an amazing thing we get to do in America. Every 2 years, we get to overthrow the government. They're called elections. And we get to, I subscribe to that Aaron Sorkin West Wing romantic view of this, because there are people who have died in this country and continue to die all over the world for the simple right of doing what a group of us did around Lauren's dining room table, which was say, we've got some problems with what's going on in the world. Let's have an open conversation and discussion about it. And now we get to go to the Holiday Inn North Shore in Skokie, and we get to say, come on over for $20. You're going to get something that people pay a lot more to get, seminars of this nature. And we're just gonna talk. We're also, most importantly, we're going to listen, and we're going to respond, and everyone's going to be able to leave by doing something actionable. I think everyone will do what the theater company I belong to says they want to do every day, which is change, charge, and empower people. Come in, be changed, be charged, be empowered. And not only do I think that's a way that we should live, generally speaking, you get to do that for $20. It's kind of a deal. So
definitely. And I believe there would be a question and answer at the end. Is that true? So what really impressed me when I heard about this was what you just said, Scott, that you just decided to go ahead and take action and do something, Lauren and Ellyn, and bringing friends together rather than just complaining. We all can find it easy to complain, but how can we move forward and how can we be constructive about it? And that's what got me excited. That's why I decided to do this very last minute, put this program together, throw it together, and all of you decided to quickly come on, even though you've never been on as far as I know, a hangout on air, and just participate. So that's really important. Any last closing words from each of you? I'll start with Anne, since I haven't spoken to you most recently now.
I'm going to echo what Scott was saying, and also Lauren, in terms of how replicable this is. One of the early things that we noted was how many speakers are actually available, how many not-for-profit organizations are doing such good work. We had to winnow down our list. That in and of itself is a huge statement. So this is definitely an option for other people to follow through with.
Yeah.
Excellent. All right, and I'm going to conclude with Lauren. So Scott, any last words here? You already said a lot.
I'll just say this. I think it is exciting and empowering to be a part of this. And whether I feel as passionately about this and being able to do this on a local level as I feel about going to Washington and doing advocacy work, which I do a few times a year. Getting a group of people together and saying, we need to talk, we need to listen, we need to respond, and to do it respectfully is a way of reclaiming this idea that the only thing that happens in this country when people get together is that they complain or turn into mob rule. We've seen this happen on a huge scale, like the Women's March, which I thought was an extraordinary event. And I was a happy participant and supporter. And something like this, where we're expecting a couple hundred people to gather simply because we believe in this great American experiment. We believe in our democracy. And we are not about to let people who have money and power and corrupt intent mess with one of the greatest ideas humanity has ever had. And to leave that in the hands of a few people in one city is not how this country is ever going to work. It's going to be people like Ellyn and Lauren who are in a suburb of Chicago saying, let's do something. And if we change the world only a few molecules at a time, we still change it.
Love it. Love it. That's great. Ellyn, I'm calling Ellyn, sorry, Lauren.
Yeah, so just to echo that, democracy only works when people are involved. And there's a lot of people that are feeling hopeless or depressed, or they just don't know what to do. And the antidote to depression, the antidote to hopelessness is doing something. And I will say, if I wasn't doing this event right now, I'd probably be sitting around and feeling really hopeless and complaining. And it feels really great to be involved in doing something. And part of this Unify Our Voices event is to get people's voices out there, to get the voices heard, to get more and more people. So it becomes a crescendo and more people are doing something, because when we rise from the bottom up, we are going to have a truly democratic society where all voices can be heard. And so we really need that movement happening. And so it feels really good to be doing something.
Thank you. That's great. So if you want to get in touch with Ellyn Hoffman or Lauren Bondy, I have an email. Please correct me if I'm wrong, Lauren, on this. I have unifyourvoices@gmail.com. Is that correct?
Sure. Yeah, perfect.
Okay. So if you want to get any questions answered, go to unifyourvoices@gmail.com. Otherwise, I'm going to show you the poster. Register now. If you are in Illinois, anywhere within the Illinois area, go to basically, what is the website link? I shortened it to bit.ly/UOV-tickets, UOV all in caps, -tickets with a capital T, or eventbrite.com, right?
They can go to Eventbrite and they can search Unify Our Voices. They can go to Facebook and search Unify Our Voices, and there's links everywhere to the Eventbrite page where they can purchase their tickets.
Great. So remember, you can also look on Facebook and join the Facebook page. There's a Twitter feed, Unify Our Voices, and you can get more information. I want to thank all of you for joining us, for caring to make this a better world. We all can take action. We all can do something. And please come to Unify Our Voices if you're in Illinois, or find out more by connecting with Ellyn or Lauren. Thank you again. We all believe in you, and we're looking forward to seeing you this Sunday from 2 to 4 at the Holiday Inn North Shore, Skokie on Toohey Avenue in Skokie. Thank you, and have a wonderful day.
Thank you.
Thanks, Lynn.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.